Voters are heading to the polls in 5 states across the country today. Primary elections are being held in Alabama, Arkansas, Minnesota, Texas, and Georgia. The races in the Peach State, however, are in the spotlight. They're seen as a test of former President Trump's influence over voters and specifically Republicans. As you may remember, Mr. Trump put significant pressure on officials from Georgia to overturn the results of the election back in 2020, asking them to find him some more votes. So joining me now is CBS News Washington reporter Caitlin Huey-Burns. Caitlin, great to see you. So today's gubernatorial race in Georgia is once again, as we said, a test for Donald Trump's abilities as kingmaker. It also kind of pits him in a shadow war against his VP, Mike Pence. And we know in last week's primary, the results were mixed. So what can we expect today in Georgia?
Hey, Tanya. Well, happy Election Day. Voters are voting in a variety of different states, but this race in Georgia is so fascinating to watch for a couple of different reasons. And you mentioned this proxy war between former President Trump and his former Vice President, Mike Pence. Now, remember, Georgia is kind of ground zero for former President Trump's false claims about the election. He has gotten into this race in terms of supporting former Senator Perdue against the incumbent Governor Kemp because of the 2020 election. He is essentially mad at Kemp for certifying the results of the election in his state and not calling a special election to reevaluate or a special session rather to reevaluate the results. And so that's significant here. And then Pence got involved by supporting Kemp, the incumbent, knowing full well that Donald Trump was supporting the other person in this race. Pence traveled to Georgia last night to campaign for Kemp on the eve of his election rally. So this does raise questions about what Pence is planning to do for his own potential higher ambitions. Is this kind of laying the groundwork for thinking about a run for office? It's very rare, to say the least, to see this kind of dynamic of a president and his vice president going head-to-head in this way. And it looks, according to the polls, and there have been a lot of them in Georgia, according to the polls, it looks like Kemp is likely to pull out a win here. And the reason that he has been ahead is largely because he has been focused on things that Republicans, by and large, would rather be focused on, mostly, the economy, inflation. He's been talking a lot about how he guided the state through the pandemic and reopened. So that's kind of interesting to watch as Republicans are watching this race, what to take away. Focusing on the 2020 election versus focusing on these contrasts that they can make at this point against the Democrats.
Yeah, fascinating dynamic there in Georgia, almost like a palace intrigue playing out. Caitlin, what other races should we be watching today?
Another race that I'm watching is in Texas. It's actually a Democratic primary in this border district in Texas. Incumbent Henry Cuellar is facing a runoff challenge from Jessica Cisneros, a young progressive challenger. She's forced him into a runoff race. And what's interesting about this is that we've all been wondering, how is the issue of abortion rights going to play in midterm races? Well, here we're getting a taste of how it's playing on the Democratic side. Henry Cuellar, the incumbent, is the only Democrat left in the House who does not support abortion. He voted against the bill when it came up to codify Roe versus Wade into law. And now Jessica Cisneros is using that against him. So this might give us some data points about how this issue is playing. This is a border district. He has very close ties to this district. We'll see if this is an issue that makes a difference. Another race to watch is in Arkansas, where you may recognize Sarah Huckabee Sanders is running for governor. She is likely going to cruise through to victory in this Republican primary and likely to become the next governor of Arkansas, a position, of course, that her father held. She is, of course, the former press secretary to Donald Trump. And another race to watch is back in Texas, George P. Bush, of course, the son of Jeb Bush, grandson of the former president. What is interesting about this is he is running for attorney general. This will be a test about whether the Bush dynasty in Texas can last and what that means for this era of Republican Party politics with the Bushes in charge. If he loses, that will show a lot about that family dynasty.
So many fascinating races to watch. Caitlin, thank you so much for breaking them down.